So I now have the honor of introducing Abdul. So Abdul is a senior product owner at the Porsche experience e-commerce platform, but he also moonlights as a stand-up comedian and has over 200 mic performances across Europe, Dubai, and India. This is his third time being a speaker at PMF, and this time he is going to cross at the intersection of his two loves, product management and comedy, to say how stand-up comedy has boosted his career. So please welcome Abdul.
Okay, let's do this. How are you guys doing today? Good? Nice, nice. Where's the energy? Guys, it's only 11:50. We still have a whole day of talks left. Yeah? Okay, okay. So, yeah, like Tilka said, great introduction. Thank you so much. I am a product manager, but I'm also a stand-up comedian. And over the course of the past many years, I've realized there is an intersection between the two, and I just want to talk about that to you guys. And hopefully, you find it as beneficial as I did. But before we start, a little bit about me, because yeah, my main quest of being in product management started all the way back in Dubai. I was born and raised there. I worked for a company called Beam. They were into mobile payments. And at the time, I thought, okay, I knew everything I need to know about product management, right? And then I moved to Europe in Berlin, and I realized they had thrown the book out of the window. It was completely different, and I had to relearn it all over again while struggling my way to build IoT dashboards over there. And then I made my way to Wirecard. How many of you are familiar with the Wirecard debacle? Give me a cheer. Okay, some of you know it. Those of you that don't, it used to be the darling of the DAX. And then around 2020, yeah, that's when it went bust. And for those of you that know about what happened in Wirecard, disclaimer, I had nothing to do with it. I was there at the tail end. I did get an opportunity to work for a small POC. It was about revenue analytics, trying to find out who was the most revenue generating merchants for Wirecard at the time. And we did get an opportunity to connect to the prod database. And we found out that the top selling merchant in that year was ABC Florist, a flower shop. Now, I was new at the company then, and I just thought, okay, their flowers must be really good. It wasn't until the Netflix documentary I realized, oh shit, okay, that's a front. There's some money laundering happening here. But yeah, so that thing happened with Wirecard, and then finally the skill set and opportunity met perfectly at Porsche Experience for me. And now I live in Stuttgart. I work as a senior product owner for Porsche Experience, which is a subsidiary of Porsche. They're into travel and tourism. And yeah, apart from the main quest, right? What makes this whole thing interesting, the reason I'm even standing in front of you guys today is the spin-offs, the side quests, the other things that I've been doing. Like Tilka said, I've been a speaker at this event for the last 2 years. First, I started talking about philosophy. Now I'm here talking about comedy. I don't know what that says, but I guess that kind of covers the whole spectrum. I'm also in charge and organizing intercultural events in Stuttgart, Germany, where I'm based for the Tamil diaspora that have moved from India, Sri Lanka, due to various war reasons, and getting them acclimated and integrated into the society. We do intercultural programs with them. And also I've been doing stand-up comedy for a few years now across Europe, India, and Dubai. And what I've realized in that time is the more I've started performing in stand-up comedy, the better I started getting at work. And at first it didn't really make sense. And then I started noticing the differences. And that's what I want to bring to you guys today. So firstly, I just want to compare two things. What is even the similarity between the two things, right? In a product, everybody knows this. You start with the simplest form of an idea, a feature request from a client, a thought, a dream that your CEO had, right? Next day he comes and says, guys, let's get this done. Whatever it is, it starts with a simple idea. Then you test that idea with a POC, a proof of concept. And then it goes to the MVP, you release it, and then you do the full release. Similar evolution when we are writing jokes as comedians. Everything starts with a bit. A bit is the simplest form a joke can take. It's not yet a joke. As of now, it's just an unthought idea in somebody's mind. And it could be a rant. You just know there's something there. That's what a bit is. Every comedian is on the lookout for a bit. And a bit slowly evolves over time into a routine. A routine is a collection of jokes on a similar themes. Because once you identify an absurdity in life, could be something at work, how you interact with your superiors, for example, you also find other associated incidents around that that could also be funny. And that routine eventually develops into a set. A comedy set could be a tight 5 minutes, or it could be 10, 15 minutes. A set is a collection of jokes, not necessarily around the same theme, but it kind of tells the story, right? And then the final maturity is the special. Now, most of the audience here, that's what you guys see on YouTube, on Netflix, the 1 hour comedy specials of the greats, right? Like Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, George Carlin, whoever it may be. That 1 hour special, it took them 5 years at least to come up with those jokes that are just 1 hour. So that's kind of how it evolves for comedians. And just to take a step back, why am I even talking about comedy at this product management festival conference? We're supposed to be talking about work, right? It's serious stuff. But you'd be surprised to know the parts of your brain that get activated when you are telling a joke or you're listening to a joke is the same parts, the prefrontal cortex, that also gets activated when you're at work. Planning, executive decision making, the reward system, all of these are played by the prefrontal cortex, the same part that also helps you appreciate humor. So there is certainly an overlap. And it doesn't really hurt to add a dash of humor to your presentations, to your colleagues in meetings. It builds that human connection. So, this slide looks like it was made by an 11-year-old. That's the comedian in me. I apologize. But yeah, I've split the parts of my career that have been influenced into 4 topics: how being a comedian improved my written communication, my verbal communication, confidence and stage presence, and then stakeholder management. I've also split them apart further into subdivisions, and then we can go through them one by one. Okay? First, stage presence. Hey, stage presence. So there's a couple of variations in which entertainer occupies a stage, and some of them can be translated into work as well. A common adage is you need to speak with your body, right? You need to be animated with your hands. You need to engage the audience that are not in the first row, that are kind of spread out everywhere. That's a common adage. However, there's also an advantage to the opposite. Being a stoic presenter inadvertently makes the audience think subconsciously that this guy is probably an expert in that subject matter, right? So if you want to build trust, be stoic. It's okay. Yeah? But if you want to engage you that particular moment, those 10, 20 minutes, you really need their engagement. You need their attention. They don't have to learn any knowledge about the content, then be animated, get their attention, work for their attention. So there are advantages to both. And another thing comedy has taught me is instant feedback. Because a talk like this, I only get feedback towards the end, right, during the Q&A session. But in comedy, every few seconds I get feedback. It's, silence is scary for a comedian. Because we're always thinking, did we fuck up that joke? Is the audience too formal for this? Whatever the case may be. So yeah, let's move to the next one. Oh yeah, joke structure. So this is me dissecting the anatomy of a joke. It kind of feels weird, always telling jokes, but now I'm explaining to you why the joke is funny. But essentially, that anatomy of a joke is setup plus punchline. When you write jokes regularly, you get to realize, okay, the first time you ever write a joke, the first draft is usually 1 page, and then you come back to it after a few weeks, it becomes half a page, and then it becomes shorter and shorter. You learn to trim the fat when it comes to conveying a message. And the setup is all about building an environment, dropping a couple of actors on it, let's call them users, right? Defining a user need, solving a user problem, and when that solution is applied to the problem, something hilariously goes wrong. And that's the punchline, the misdirection. So this is the structure of a joke. And having written that over time for many years, what I've learned is I've started writing my tickets differently. I've started writing emails differently. Everything started having a narrative, right? You have that kickoff meeting. You send out the invitation email to everybody. After the kickoff meeting, you send a closing email. Everything has a structure, everything has a beginning, middle, and an end. And things need to become shorter because whatever you're thinking, the way in which you're thinking is not how the reader is accustomed to. So you need to keep it brevity, right? It's all about brevity. And yeah, when it comes to verbal communication, something that I realized is there are two types of acts comedians. Those are performing comedians, and then there's reacting comedians. Performing comedians, you can also translate that to giving talks, presentations, are very particular, very methodical. Everything is highly scripted. Whereas a reacting comedian, when they perform and they get audience feedback instantly, they react to that. So if I mess up a joke, I immediately acknowledge that, oh shit, okay, that joke did not make you guys laugh. All right, Zurich, you guys don't like political jokes. Very neutral. Makes sense. Something like that. Call yourself out on the blunder. If you make a mistake, don't pretend it didn't happen and push through. That makes you feel a bit distant from the audience, right? If you want to make that instant human connection, call yourself out. So at work, if you guys are having, I don't know, several back to back meetings, then do call it out. Everybody must be tired. Maybe we can split this up, right? Do it over the week. So, yeah, be honest with yourself and with the rest of your team. It builds connection. Seek discomfort. Yeah, this is something I was mentioning early on. When you're talking to people one on one or in a group, silence is not always bad. This took me a while to realize because I used to think, okay, if someone's silent, that means, okay, they're thinking about something else. But it just could mean that your idea takes a while to take root in their mind, right? So when you're in discussions, do not avoid confrontations. Approach them with curiosity. Nobody is out here to judge you or think you are not good at what you are doing, but rather everyone's just here to gain. Probably not the whole thing that you're presenting, maybe small slivers here and there. So just seek them out with curiosity. You'll be able to better match your audience's energy. Oh, this is something I'm really excited to share with you guys. This is something I realized much later after started doing comedy. The sleeper effect. So, the sleeper effect, what is it? It is a way in which you construct messaging. You construct messaging, you put it together in such a way that when the audience listens to it and they're unpacking it, it takes a while for them to unpack it. So, I say something, you think about it, it makes sense, but then you go home, it still makes sense when you put your subjective perspective over it. So, an example of this, how I use this at work is, for example, instead of saying, the team did not deliver the tickets that we committed to. Rather, a better way to say that would be, we always deliver the tickets that we commit to. However, looks like we overcommitted this time, right? There is a huge difference between them. They seem to convey the same meaning, but there is a huge difference. In the second variation, where I say, we always deliver, but this time we overcommitted, the sting towards the end of us overcommitting and failing, it hurts, yes, but after you leave the room, after you go home after work, the only thing that's constant that remains is the definitive statement that I made in the beginning, which is we always deliver what we commit to. And I think this is quite important, the way in which you deliver the message to your team. It could boost their productivity or it could dampen it. So we need to pay attention to stuff like this. And yes, keep calm and fail. Guys, it's not that serious. It's not that life or death situation. You need to take every failure like it's just another step. Failure is not a bug, it's a feature. Again, took me a long time to realize this. In the starting early days, I used to get really embarrassed. I used to go home and feel like, oh my God, maybe I should stop doing comedy. Maybe, I don't know, this is not for me. And then over time, I realized each open mic is just a POC, right? Everyone is an experiment. There are many things coming together. The jokes that I'm saying, the kind of audience that chose to come out for live comedy that night, the environment, the mood they're in, how many drinks they've had. All of this affects the performance. So you realize and you analyze this, all the different aspects that go into it. And that same mindset also helps you at work when you look at every new thing that you try as merely an experiment. And yeah, this was something that often I get asked being a product manager and a comedian. And I wanted to put the two things together. So in comedy, there's something called crowd work. So what you see mostly on Netflix is scripted comedy. And crowd work is when a comedian interacts with the crowd one-on-one at a time, tries to generate something funny out of you, everybody has a good time, right? But this is quite scary because it's very unplanned. You have no idea what that person is going to say, right? That guy could be some crazy person that has some crazy ideas, and you need to be able to adapt to that. The thing about doing crowd work regularly, week in, week out, over time, you start identifying patterns, right? So when you're doing crowd work and you find out someone is from a specific country, you know the stereotypes about that country, you know the ones that you can tell and the ones that wouldn't hurt them, or by profession, for example. Like every time when I'm doing crowd work and I ask the audience, what do you do for a living? If they say, I'm a lawyer, I always say the same joke back to them. I'm like, okay, the next joke I'm going to say usually gets me canceled, so I need your number for after that. Something like this. So over time, you realize patterns when you do crowd work. So even something as unpredictable as an unscripted conversation between a stranger and yourself, over time, you will identify patterns. So you don't have to feel scared about it. And in work, after a presentation, during Q&A sessions, some of the tips that I use that I learned from comedy is when you're having a Q&A session and you're feeling really stressed out, repeat the question back to them exactly as they said it, but slower. Number one, everybody gets to hear the question this person asked, right? So we are all on the same page. Number two, it gives me some time to think about a response. So after this conversation, after this PPT, during the Q&A, if you hear me repeating very slowly, you know what I'm doing. Another thing is, yeah, you can make a quick self-deprecatory joke about yourself. When they ask you, hey, that thing did not make sense, you can be like, oh, I'm sorry, I did not do a good job of explaining it. That kind of puts the pressure back on them. Because at the end of the day, in a room full of professionals, nobody wants to come across as an idiot. Everybody wants to make things cordial, and nobody's out to get anyone. Everyone's just here to gain. If you have that in the back of your mind, interactions become much easier. Yes, can't make everyone happy. This is something every product manager knows. This is something that I knew, but I realized even more after doing comedy. So in stand-up comedy, we have something called hacks. A hack is a joke that is considered like a low-hanging fruit. Like comedians try to stay away from it usually. Common hacks are like amongst boomers, they love wife bashing jokes for some reason. And amongst millennials, they love bashing vegans. That seems to be the most popular type of joke. Amongst Gen Z, they love bashing millennials. That seems to be very popular amongst them. And similarly, even at work, right? You have to make compromises. One of the things that I keep in mind before going to work is, hey, today I'm going to make sure that every department that I interact with is slightly unhappy. So that means I did a good job making compromises across all departments. So that's a metric you try to keep in mind. And yes, rule of three. This is another really exciting concept that I want to share with you guys. I didn't know this. Seems intuitive after you listen to it, but when you implement it, it makes a lot of sense. Apparently, human beings are designed to consume information in threes, right? You must have heard this. Once is an anomaly, twice is a coincidence, thrice is a pattern. So a lot of times when you see repetitive messaging, you see this in movies, cinema, advertising. That's the point that they're trying to drive home, right? Human intelligence is based on pattern recognition. So what I see at work, a lot of times in my own company and other companies that we partner up with, during meetings, a series of meetings that happens throughout a product's lifetime, a lot of times engineers, even product managers, repeat the technical limitations more often than the vision. And I think that could be a drawback because the more you repeat the vision, the technical limitations, people will find a way to move around the constraints. But if you keep repeating the constraints, because that comes out of fear, we want to make sure that we don't overpromise and underdeliver to the stakeholders, right? That's how the motivation behind that. But if you keep repeating the limitations, the confines of your imagination and your thinking is also being limited. So that's why I think you need to repeat things in three. But the rule of three is best explained with an example, right? An example could clearly explain the rule of three. Right, guys? Let's do an example that will drive the point home about rule of three. See what I did there? That's the rule of three. I got your attention. You just repeat the same thing in different ways and to get the attention of those people at the back. Anyway. And this one, yeah. So in stand-up comedy, the worst nightmare for any rising up-and-coming comedian is a heckler. A heckler is somebody from an audience that just interrupts the comedian and their act and completely throws them off. And there are two types of hecklers based on what I've seen. There's one that's kind of harmless. That's usually the kind of people that come to comedy shows regularly because they aspire to be a comedian someday. So they're all like at the edge of the seat, intently listening to the setup, and they can't help it but say the punchline they think what it is. And it could sometimes throw off the comedian. Now, they are harmless because after the show, you can talk to them, hey, properly sign up to an open mic, and then you get to speak to the audience. However, there are also the other kind of hecklers who just want to hijack the show, who've had a few too many drinks. They just want the attention. And once you identify the difference between the type of hecklers, you'll be able to, address them appropriately. Because at the end of the day, my priority is the audience need to go home happy. So if a heckler is kind of funny and it adds to the show, I let them interact. If it's off-putting, you shut it down immediately. And similar principle I've also adopted at work, which is when someone is asking you questions, the first thing to find out is not to like, why is he disrupting my thing or is he trying to question my authority? It's none of that. It's just seek it with curiosity. What is his motive behind that question? I think it was Socrates that said, iterative questioning leads to the ultimate solution, which is you ask why someone did it, you get an answer. You ask why again. You do this iteratively 3 times, and what you're left with is usually nothing. That means that was never a concrete topic anyway, or you're left with the true motive behind why someone does something. So always find out the motive of the people that are heckling you or interrupting you, then you'll know how best to handle them. Is it just attention that they want, or is it actually the contents of your speech that they wanted to know more about? Yeah, so I think that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for your attention.
Woohoo! Great.
Woohoo.
Thank you so much for sharing here.
How many minutes do we
Yes, we have 5 minutes for Q&A, which
Okay,
is
awesome.
great. So we have a throw mic here, and we have mics on either sides. And if you would like to ask a question, get your hand up, and we'll try and make sure that we can find you. Okay, so as the microphones try and find their way to questioners, I wanted to ask you a question, kick us off.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure you have a way that you prepare for comedy shows.
Yes.
And what is that? And is there any parallels to the way that you prepare for, say, a product review?
For a comedy set, usually it starts with crying in my bathroom. I am not good enough. I should not be doing this. You go through the nerves, yeah? It starts however it starts, but then there's a lot of nerves because it's more unpredictable than preparing for a product conference. I have notes here. I felt so blessed. I'm like, oh my God, I can check the slides. I can't afford to do that in comedy. So I allowed myself to feel as nervous as my body wants to feel that day. I book it in my calendar, 9 to 11, cry in the shower. Be nervous. And then that energy in your body goes to your cognition, and then I start writing. I write. I may not perform it that night, but I just start writing. I try to channel that energy somehow. For a product conference, maybe it's because I'm a comedian. For me, as soon as I have notes, I feel more calm. And these are not topics that I educated myself academically. These are things that I experienced, so it kind of comes from the heart. It's easier.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, so where do we have? We have a question here. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you, Abdul, for the great speech. Really interesting. So my name is Stefan, and I usually find the right moment in meetings to crack the wrong joke. So assuming there was like a prod issue last week or another customer issue, apparently in some meetings it's not adequate to crack that joke. And now you mainly focus on like skills you apply from comedy to work and so on. Have you like a tip, or how can I find out when it's the right moment in a professional environment to crack a joke, or would you stay away from that?
Well, if you're doing deployments on Friday, do not joke about that. Definitely not. Deployments gone wrong are serious situations, and if your clients are on the call, absolutely not. But if it's especially with your own internal team and a time to... So there's the corporate side of you, then there's the personal side of you, Stefan, right? We always make sure at work it's the corporate Stefan that comes out, who's skilled, experienced, and all of that. The personal side, if you want to let it come out, add a bit of humor. Make sure it's that time and environment that it's within your own team. People that won't really judge you, but they'll just care about, okay, he is part of my team and we are all focusing on the same vision. So I would say in internal meetings, it's okay to be a bit more relaxed, joke around. But yeah, no, definitely not with clients or after a bad deployment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question in the front as well.
Catched it. Yeah, very nice talk, Abdul.
Thanks, dude.
That's awesome. And this is the first talk I don't see reference of AI. Something special.
This is all coming from AI, Abdul's intelligence. Anyway.
Cool.
Thank you. I just came up with it on the spot.
Perfect.
But yeah, your question, dude.
Yeah, my question is more on failures. Like I think also in the comedy, also in the product engineering or any leadership, anywhere, we often face failures.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's embarrassing, and maybe in the comedy it's even more complex because you're in front of the audience. So I think what's the right approach to deal something you planned, something you executed, but it didn't go the way you wanted, and everyone see it didn't go the way you wanted. And then what's the way to come out of it? Is there any way to magically change it to a success? Or is it more like acknowledging it and then next time you do it better? Is there any analogy we can take out of it?
Sorry, your name? Your name?
Anand.
Anand. So guys, Anand here asked about... It's okay. No, dude, I got your question. It's a really good question. I'll answer that with an anecdote. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was in a call with my manager, and he found out that I messed something up in the roadmap. Okay, something was supposed to be that particular day, but I thought it was still 2 weeks away. So I messed up, and it actually had impact. Other departments started sending emails, hey, we are not ready to go live with this new deployment yet. So the first thing that I did is, of course, I had a one-on-one with my manager, and I told him, here's exactly what happened. So admission and acknowledgement. And often, as product managers, what we do is we are quick to come up with alternatives, find the best solution, and solve it. We're always quick in problem solving, which is good, which is what I used to do, until I started paying attention to my body as well. And that's because of the stand-up comedy part, because when I get embarrassed because I bombed badly on stage, it's not just here I'm disturbed, also my body, the entire, the shivering, the shaking and all that. And that's when I read about it and I realized every time you come across failure or these hurdles, it's not just your mind, your body also needs to feel it and go through it. So I would say allow yourself to feel it, but then you can always rely back on it. Like, hey, Anand has always been a good problem solver. He will solve it. But right now, yeah, it feels like shit, but you need to allow yourself to feel it. And then every thought has an expiry date. Every feeling also has an expiry date. So admit it, acknowledge it, and then afterwards, nicely, a week or two later, I did schedule another one-on-one call with my manager, and I casually showed him how my new roadmap is slightly better. So, you could do that as well. That's for the narrative part. So it's in the back of his mind, hey, the thing that I gave him shit for 2 weeks ago, look at it now. Wow. So that's how I kind of deal with it. Thank you for the question. Really cool.
Cool. And we'll take our last question over here on the side.
Cool. Hey, Karim, thank you. This is really, really great presentation. I come from a similar background as yours, so I could comprehend a bit. My name is Saurav. My question is, like, I grew up in a family which was very serious. All the time, study hard.
Yeah.
If you laugh, then you're like, don't laugh. Life is not easy. Things like that. So I carry a lot of that till in my life today. Sometimes I get very, very serious. I try to be funny, but I'm not funny. So the point is how to become funny in a normal life, not as a stand-up comedian.
Your name's Saurabh, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Saurabh.
Saurabh, firstly, let's clear this up. You are funny. You just heard the reaction, right? You got an applause. So firstly, you are funny. Everybody's funny, dude. It's just number of people that find you funny. As of now, it could be just one, yourself. Over time, it's just matching your funny energy with someone else. But then, yeah, I get the thing about the serious part, and we all grew, not we all, but yeah, I can relate to that. growing up in a very strict household that is very academic and oriented with delivery results, and you don't get time to joke and you don't get time to flex your creative muscles. So, sort of, where do you live? Do you live in Zurich?
I live in Lucerne.
You live in Luzern. I don't know if we have an open mic there, but definitely sign up for an open mic. Yeah, I would really suggest that. I would suggest that not just to sort of for everybody. Just it's risk-free. You can embarrass yourself in front of a bunch of strangers that you know will not meet again. So it's okay. Try it out, and then yeah, that's how you develop rapport. And especially even at work, in one-on-one meetings, you can be yourself. You can set aside the professional side of you a little bit, just so you connect with the human. Because I've had strict professional relationship with colleagues, and those that have seen the human side of me, the other guys are always way more understanding, even when I fuck up, even when things go well. They're always there. So yeah, I would say you can open it up slightly and also try some open mics, and you are certainly funny.
Ooh. So with that, let's thank Abdul one more time.
Thank you so much, guys. It's really fun.